Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss all things to do with the markets. That's the stock market, the crypto market, and any other market where we can make some or a lot of money on the internet. It's another green day in crypto, which we like to see. Load up for discussion today. We have Bitcoin surging again to $74,000. We've got hype up a few percent, past $40. Feels like a big number there as well. Multiple mainstream media publications keep sending it higher, along with record volume as well. Rahim will take us through that today. And finally, NVIDIA announces increase in demand in coming quarters from $500 billion to $1 trillion. We'll dive into those numbers a little bit as well today. We've also got the latest on price action and general market thoughts as usual. So stay tuned for that. I've got Legend in the co-host seat along with Rahim as well. We're looking forward to get into it today, but just a reminder before we do, nothing that we say here is financial advice. The market is very, very risky. We do not know anything for sure, so please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, it is Tuesday. It is the 17th of March. Legendary, how are you doing? How are you feeling?
Jim, doing quite well. I'm quite happy. Market is green. The agentic engineering is fun. I'm making good progress on the things that I want to make progress on. So my OpenClaw agent hasn't crashed in days. That's great as well.
All good.
I'm happy.
Things are good. Things are better when the market is green, aren't they? I think that is the case. Rahim, how are things your side? Are things as good when the market is green? How are you feeling on your side?
GM, everybody. I'm actually feeling great too. I completely agree with Ledge. I think the other thing I really enjoy when markets are green, I just feel like the digital world becomes like a lot more positive. Like I feel like Twitter, everyone's being more positive, sharing like more like good stuff. And I think like especially with like all the conflict and everything happening, I think it's nice to see that like glimmer of hope between everyone. So yeah, it's kind of nice to see. Very shocking, I must say. Every day I'm like shocked with like price movement. You look at like ETH, absolutely like killing it. So every day I'm like astounded by how uncertain the world is, whereas like crypto markets are completely independent of that. But super happy to see all of this.
I'm curious from your perspective, Rahim. We have a couple of things we've been trying to explore the last few days is why crypto has been so resilient in a period of time where everything else seems to be getting increasingly volatile. Crypto obviously sold off aggressively from where it was of the highs of last year. So these small rises by no means makes up for all of that downfall, but realistically, it's still acting incredibly resilient at the moment. Do you have a view as to why that might be the case?
You know, it's funny because like earlier I had this theory a couple of days ago. Last week I spent the entire week like really deep diving into Saylor's STRC. I've like become overly like obsessed with it. I get the maximalism around it. So like a lot of my thesis was that okay, clearly a huge chunk of, and this is what I was saying, everyone who's like creating like these technical analysis charts, like how are you guys like not taking into this insane influx of like Bitcoin that's being bought, especially last week before like the dividends went out. But then like
do you want to just explain if you did a big deep dive, right? Do you want to give like a TLDR? What was your key takeaway from that STRC? We haven't actually spoken about a huge amount on the show. I see Funky reacting positively to what you're saying. Maybe we'll bring him in there as well around STRC. What was it? What was your key takeaway? How do you view it?
I think just like broader, it's probably one of the easiest products to explain in my understanding in terms of like value proposition, not the technical side of things, right? Because like the way STRC works is that it's designed to always trade at like $100. It obviously goes a bit below that, it goes like a bit above that. That's where like a lot of the volume comes, where the financial instrument is able to buy Bitcoin on that fees. The thing to think about is when if you are buying like treasury bills or like you have like a savings account, you get like 3.5 4% yield on like whatever like money that you're holding. What STRC is saying is that it's going to give you 11.5%. So as long as Bitcoin is able to do at least 11.5% annually, like that product is supposed to run like super smooth. conceptually, if you think about it, it's like if you thought insurance companies, if you think like pension funds, it's giving them access to crypto, whereas like removing the volatility of crypto. And I think this is the secret sauce to me, because clearly like Bitcoin is in like conversation everywhere, right? With the ETFs, and like Trump is talking about it. You have like JP Morgan and like all these like big institutions talking about it. So even if like you're like a 60-year-old like boomer who's like never been into like crypto, have been like kind of opposed to it, opposed to like the tech or the volatility, you clearly are like aware of it. So now your financial instrument has a way to get exposure to crypto, the at least like the pump that we've seen in crypto in like the last 4 years, right? Bitcoin going all the way to like 126, all the way from like the lows of what, like 10 15 ish, like the earlier bear market in 23. So I feel like that is like a big value proposition. This obviously came out in like last July, but the volume that we saw last year and the fact that Saylor ended up buying $1.5 billion worth of like Bitcoin is super insane to see. And I think that's like really underplayed in all these like technical analysis chart everyone's making. Like, I'm like, guys, what the hell is going on? How are you not talking about $1 billion of volume that was not there before?
Really good point. It's one thing that I've seen going on, but we haven't actually discussed it a huge amount on the show. So thank you for bringing that up. We'll get to more reasons why Bitcoin is moving as well in a moment, but that's a very interesting point. Funky, wanted to bring you into the conversation as well. See you reacting in agreement. What's your view on STRC, how it's working? Is that the reason why you think we're seeing this move in Bitcoin? And do you believe in the mechanic? What's your view here?
I mean, ultimately, I think it is. It's huge. I couldn't believe the number that he actually bought the other day. So I was kind of shocked by all of it. But I think everything else is just the volatility that we've been talking about the last couple of days for why this is all kind of popping off right now.
Okay. Definitely something to be aware of. Saylor continuing to financially engineer interesting new novel ways to get the market excited or get the market participating in the Bitcoin trade, I guess. And this is another option to that end. We have also been speaking about the general conflict and how crypto might be seen as a decent set of rails to have your money placed on if you think that the traditional means of moving money might fail you in these difficult times, whether that's banks putting in transfer restrictions or being difficult for whatever reason. Having physical gold might be a problem. So I'm open to that idea as well. To be honest, we saw Circle's share price go up another, I think another few percent over the last 24 hours, and has basically gone up 100%, I believe, over the last couple of months, as the stablecoin volume and TVL has started to move as well, which is actually an excellent proxy for crypto when you see that moving back up. So I think that could be part of the mix as well, but I guess there's a number of factors here. Excellent start to the show. Good to start with this interesting discussion, but let's get you up to speed with everything else you need to know. First, to get you up to speed with the metrics will be covering, as well as getting into the bigger discussion today. We're starting with Bitcoin, which is according to the chart, just up 0.5%, but it's looking like a better number. It did go past 74K before pulling back just beneath, still up 4.5% on the week, whereas ETH is up another couple of percent, pushed past 2.3K, up 12% on the week. XRP is up a couple of percent as well to $1.50. BNB is down 1% to $6.69. Sol is flat at $93. We have HyperLiquid up another 4% to $41. So HyperLiquid looking very, very strongly, up 17% on the week. On the meme coin side of things, Doge is flat. Pepe is down 5%. Obviously had a very big day yesterday and is up 10% on the week. Pengu is down 1% as well. SPX is up a couple of percent. Varcoin is up 6%, up 30% on the week. So there's been actually a little bit more sporadic on the meme coin side in general. Pippin down 50%. Who knows what that token is doing? It's always going in different directions in very aggressive ways. So that's that on the meme coin side. Getting into the headlines, which we'll talk about today, and the other bits of news, which I think you'll find important. Bitcoin surged again to above 74 before it just pulled back. Hype is past $40 now with multiple mainstream media publications as well. NVIDIA announces increase in demand in coming quarters from $500 billion to $1 trillion. We will talk about that as well. In other news, Tether CEO Paolo Ardoino teases the AI team will release a true breakthrough this week. That is interesting. Messari CEO steps down as the crypto data platform pivots to focus on AI, just as crypto starts moving up. Of course, that is when the pivot takes place. Crypto wealth manager Abra is deciding to go public on the NASDAQ at $750 million valuation. Unfortunately for all, OpenSea, NFT marketplace of choice, has announced a delay of the C token. I think it was scheduled to be very soon. They're saying they're going to delay. That is after a number of waves of initiatives to get people using the platform, farming the platform. I do not think that was received well by the community, but they say it's in their best interest. Kalshi offers $1 billion prize for predicting all 63 games of men's college basketball tournament perfectly. And I believe that you can also win $1 million if you predict the input, like if you get them all right, but not the exact scores. Ironlight raises $21 million to expand marketplace for tokenized securities, and USDAI announces allocations for ICO and airdrops are now live, and the ICO refund is available. So that is the news get up to speed with everything that you need to know. I think we'll also have to go in the direction of the Middle East conflict as well, touch base with some of the latest developments over there. We did that in detail yesterday. Maybe we are going to move away from that just today in particular, but it's incredibly relevant. So we'll touch on oil as well. That's what we're going to be talking about today, guys. Those are your headlines. Legendary, before we hit the main stuff today, is there anything that is catching your attention there? Where do you want to go first?
Yeah, there's quite a few things actually. First of all, thank you for putting USDAI in there. I had farmed that extensively, and I did not know that it is time to check my allocation for my airdrop. So this is what I'm going to do after the show, and I hope that I did not miss any terms that I had to accept or other stuff to do, and I might have a good afternoon. And the other thing I wanted to touch on is CoinGecko actually had quite some interesting things. One of which was this chart, which they shared today, which is probably something we're gonna look into a bit later. And it is looking at Bitcoin versus traditional asset price returns. And obviously you have oil in there. You have gold, you have DXY, the dollar index, BTC, as I said, and the S&P 500. And it is interesting to see that you have Bitcoin moving up at the same time as oil is moving up. But what you don't have is oil did go way higher on one day and it corrected pretty quickly. But it's not something that reflected as strongly, maybe because it was such a short time frame where oil did shot up so highly and then corrected. That did not affect Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is obviously still down on this time frame from January 1st to March 10th, which is 1 week old data. But it is confirming what we have been talking about on the show, and I just thought it's a nice view to share that it is now the asset that's profiting a lot from the flight into Bitcoin, maybe not so much into gold anymore as a result of the conflict in the Middle East. And the other thing I wanted to share on CoinGecko is, let me get that up too, it's probably easier if I just scroll through that, is that they have now a CLI command language interface as well, which is basically a cool tool to hook up your agents with, because you get prices for all of their coins up to 10 years of historical and OHLC data. You get a terminal view with a dashboard, etc., etc. So basically, AI agents are getting more and more, I think this is the broader theme here, they're getting more and more crypto-based CLIs. You did have Dune dashboards as well, which now have a CLI tool as well. So some of the biggest data providers in crypto are making it very easy for agents to read the blockchain. You obviously have Nansen. We had Alex on the show as well doing a great CLI product as well. So I need to figure out for myself, that's more not to myself, how to piece these things together and how to, because right now I'm only using the Nansen CLI. like how to make my agent more productive on chain and actually make it a useful part of my like on-chain workflow as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think it's really, really helpful to be able to access these numbers, right? A free open source terminal for real-time crypto market data that can do all kinds of things, I suspect. Interesting. Okay. Something to keep an eye on. Always trying to think from the media perspective how we can plug into these things and how we can get our agents to work for us better. I'm sure there's something to do there. Do you have any immediate thought, Ledge, how we can leverage this as a company, from a company perspective, or even as an individual perspective?
Well, given the amount of data that we're looking at the show, at some point we could probably like extract from the transcripts what are the things we look most at, what are the comparisons that we want to look at and that are not as easy to bring up in TradingView and other things, and then just have a modern market dashboard that covers all of that and that we can use on the show, maybe put it in the Telegram as well. So that's
something bespoke.
Yeah, our community can use that as well. I think that would be a good first step.
I like that. I like the idea of building something bespoke, because I don't think there's a number of different providers who have good dashboards of things in general, but none of the things that put them all together. And I think that's where the value is, by the way. In the future, the value will be in the curation of the information, because if intelligence goes to zero because you can meter it and you basically get to pay for X quantity of intelligence per day, depending on your requirement for it, I think it will be the way that you curate the information that you take from the intelligence that you meter that will be the value prop. So if you think that Legendary and I hosting this show every single day are intelligent, the way that we see the world is one of the better ways to see the world, like the eyes through which we see it, you like, then our dashboard, which we curate and collate the best information sources and put in one place, would be the place to look at. Doesn't mean other people can't also get the data from CoinGecko and then also take stablecoin TVL from somewhere else and also do something, but it's the way that you put it together and the way that you present it, I think, which will be the value prop. That's how I'm thinking about what some of the things we might be doing in the future. I like it. Like the idea. Rahim, coming to you here, any view on that in particular, where the value sits when it comes to AI, or is there some other stuff catching your attention? What direction do you want to go in?
I want to take like a slightly like a different news, which I feel like Kubesi later spoke about it, and a lot of people haven't like touched on it. And I was like, how can you capitalize on this? So I found out. So Qatar is the second largest producer of helium in the world, and they have like a reduction massively. Like they provide 33% of the entire helium volume to the world, and they've pretty much like halted production. On like helium is trading at like 2x the value, and helium is used a lot in like tech products and stuff. So semiconductors and like your silicon wafers are cooled down using like helium. If you think about like MRI machines and like medical facilities, NASA and SpaceX uses it like a lot when it comes to like the satellite infrastructure. And I think it was interesting to see that, like, it's not just like the oil is like something everyone's like talking about, and maybe like equities and things like that. But then you have like these like non-consequential that you would think that, oh, like who even like cares about heliums other than like balloons and things like that. But it is used in like the tech industry. And I think just like connecting to our original conversation of like at the opening of the show, I think the crypto market is like doing well, but like it's also like the stock market is like doing decent. But if you have like a massive, almost like a trickle down effect from like oil and like helium and like these other assets that are like not directly related, but indirectly impacting like the tech industry, the consumer industry, I feel like that's when like things start getting like a bit sketchy. I just thought like it was something helium, like, like no one's talking about like helium on the timeline.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. Legendary spoke about the pharmaceutical industry yesterday as one of the downstream, one of the industries that will feel or is feeling some downstream effect of the conflict around oil. And you've identified another one in helium, but I think realistically every single industry in some way gets touched by this, and to greater or lesser extents, but everyone is touched by it. So I think even with the amount that's happened already, there will be second order effects, and the longer it goes on, the worse it gets. While Ryan, probably come back to you in a second, just wanted to touch on oil, because I want to ask you a little bit more on the conflict and your perspective from the Middle East at the moment. So oil and HyperLiquid, or the main contract, which is the CL contract, is trading $96 now. So it's ticked up from yesterday. It dropped down maybe 10% or so from around 100. There were a lot of comments coming out of Besant yesterday, a lot of comments coming out of Trump. They seem intent on getting that oil price down verbally. That was my read of the situation. There was a couple of comments coming out of Besant saying, well, first they said they were not participating in the oil futures market. Then Trump came out again, kind of alluding to the fact that maybe this is going to be over sooner than expected. Very, very vague commentary. Or for all intents and purposes, I think that their commentary did move the market down to some degree. You know, Trump does have a lot of power. You talk about his power over the stock market. I do think this is a different market, though. So while it might respond in some ways, I think the data coming out of, or the events unfolding in the Middle East is suggesting otherwise. That's why I can't see oil going lower than where it is now. It's ticked back up to around 95, 96 now. On the news that I think Iran has kind of come out and said that they do not intend on entertaining any idea of a ceasefire or any more new negotiations at the moment. And I think they've also said that the Strait of Hormuz is open. It's just not open for America or Israel or its allies. Although that does not mean that people who are not included have had their cargo moving. I think it's only China that's had some of their oil get moved out of the Strait. So that's the position at the moment. I think we're going to be in a constant battle here where I think the tension for America as things stand is that they certainly don't want to back down, right? They don't want to back down. They don't want to look weak in this scenario. But an ongoing conflict does mean a higher oil price, almost necessarily. And so I think there's going to be a lot of commentary coming out to try and talk the market down, the oil market down, talk the conflict down. But at the same time, the longer it goes on, I think that's going to be harder to do because the oil market is simply too big to have that done to it. I think, again, not perfect experts in this arena, nothing like that at all. But that's my kind of common sense reading of the situation. Rahim, coming to you here. What's your perspective on the ongoing conflict there, and have you kind of got any specific insight?
Yeah, I think I would actually likely take a different side, because I feel like in the earlier days, Trump, I remember one of the messages that he put out on Truth Social was essentially saying that, oh, these prices are supposed to go high before like they come down. So I feel like initially his stance was like very much aggressive that this needs to be done. But I feel like lately in like the last like 3 days with him asking like all of these other European countries, Australia, Japan, to essentially like join him in this crusade to keep like the Strait of Hormuz open, I think it shows slightly like this like idea that, okay, you know what, like, I'm actually looking to de-escalate this in like some shape or form. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen that the Trump taco thing, which is like Trump always chickens out, which is like a abbreviation that people came up with on the internet that apparently is like part of his like spiel. But I think there is something to talk about that. I think, at least from my point of view, his stance has become like slightly like less aggressive in the last few days. Even like yesterday being like, hey, Venezuela, do you want to become like our new 51st state? Or just like asking all of these allies to come together.
What a friendly question. What a friendly question.
So
Such a
I
friendly
feel like,
guy.
yeah, I feel like he's looking into like, okay, how do we like bring these oil prices down? Which is why obviously we saw last weekend for them to take like around like $110, $115, and like now they keep moving between like 85 to like 93, like 94. But I definitely think this has become tricky with like all of them like supplying, or like you mentioned, like their barrels have like dropped, like the amount of like tankers, they used to go like 500 a day, now they have like 3 to 8 a day, which are obviously mostly, like you mentioned, for China. They came out yesterday saying that, yeah, like, we'll supply it to like the rest of the world except like Israel and like US, which is why they're trying to bring in like all of these allies. So at least like the ray of hope for at least like over here, and you look at like the local conversation that people are having, that I feel like there is some conversation of him being a bit like less aggressive and realizing that, okay, things need to just like calm down. At least his like big spiel has been like, I want to make like America affordable. I want to make it like easier for people to like live in. I think that spiel is going to fall really badly if he doesn't like de-escalate, at least from like an oil point of view.
Yeah. Okay. I know what you mean. I do. Maybe there's been some rhetoric around that, but I feel generally it's been very, very, very haphazard in a way. Like I feel like they're trying to thread the needle here and hit a number of objectives at the same time. I wouldn't necessarily. Maybe it's been slightly more de-escalatory. I'm not entirely convinced personally on that, but I've seen Stats has come up on the stage. Assuming you've got something to share here, Stats, welcome to the stage, man. How are you seeing things at the moment?
I just think that the whole point of, taco is kind of an inflammatory, sensationalist term, but the point that it makes is that at the end of the day, President Trump is most vulnerable to asset prices. That's the point. So when oil prices go up, that's bad for him. When stock markets go down, that's bad for him. And those are the only thing. There's not a single person in his administration that can tell him anything that he'll listen to. The only thing he listens to that has any control over him is asset prices. So when oil prices start going up and when stock market's going down, that's when he starts freaking out. That's when he starts to try to unwind the stuff he's doing. So I think when people say taco, it's not something just to dismiss out of hand because it's an absurd term. The point it's making is that above all, he listens to asset prices. And when oil prices start going high like this, and people start saying, like, one of the big promises he made was that gas prices would go down. He made a lot of promises that I think he's diverged from. But with that, but when it comes to prices, he's a money guy, and that's the stuff that he starts wanting to change. I think, again, the big issue with this conflict is it's not like Liberation Day tariffs where he had full control and could just unwind at the snap of a finger. Now suddenly Iran's bombing Dubai, Iran's doing, like, other people are involved and other interests are involved and other conflicts that go back centuries are involved. And it's just harder for him to unwind when oil prices go up. So he has to hint at it and walk a tightrope because it's just not that easy. People have died. American soldiers have died. It just becomes harder for him to stick to his typical playbook. But that's always, to me, what you have to think about with Taco is just this idea of our asset prices forcing him in a way that his initial objectives did not intend.
There's been a great article in exactly that in the Financial Times, which basically has spoken about that and has said, like, what is different this time with the closure of the Strait is that it's more than an immediate problem. It's also becoming a long-term problem, and it has, from a game theoretical perspective, changed the incentives that Iran has, because up to now they did have incentives to avoid an all-out war with Iran, with Israel and with the US. But now that Trump has made it pretty clear that overthrowing the regime is the goal and has been the goal in this, Iran does not have the incentive to hold back anymore, and it also won't have that in the future necessarily. So even if the conflict is, or the war is over at some point soon, which it does not look like this is going to be the case, now this like historical analysis of, oh, the closure of the Strait would lead to this and that has now suddenly become a reality, and has now suddenly become a tool that Iran is actively using because there is this all-out war, and that is going to put even more pressure on the asset price side of things, and will probably make it even harder to trust the markets in this presidency. And the Financial Times is also making the point that it might be beyond this presidency even, and that successors will have to deal with that now that this has become more than a theoretical game, more than a game theoretical experiment, how it looks like when Iran is going all out and is doing everything in their power to keep the Strait closed, has now become a reality and an option that they are actively using.
Yeah, I wonder whether, what was I going to say? I think the one thing that has maybe been slightly walked back, the only thing I would disagree with you in that, Ledge, is the idea that regime change is still the intention. I feel like that is one of the things that they've, whilst not formally walking back from, I do think that's kind of just disappeared from the vernacular in most recent conversations. I think if there was some type of victory that could be declared without that now, I think they would happily take it. One of the challenging lines of thinking that I've been going down recently is like, well, now what are the incentives for Iran to open the straits at all? Even if there was some de-escalation from their side, do they need to open them after? Or can they just keep the prices high for a longer period of time?
That's exactly the point the article is also making, right? If Trump finds a reason to declare a win and is like, say,
and walk away, yeah,
tomorrow, there's no reason for them to be like, okay, everything's fine, let's reopen the Strait and make sure oil is flowing through again.
Which actually makes you think, well, okay, the conflict has to escalate, because that specific type of de-escalation might not be sufficient to get the Strait open. Interestingly, I was talking to someone who I respect a great deal on in Dubai, who lives in Dubai, and we were just chatting through like what would be the factors for you to consider it safe to return to Dubai. And because they have a family and they had left for just safety reasons at the start, and a really well thought out set of ideas, like, okay, the drone things would need to have stopped, schools would need to have opened, this and that. There were a variety of factors. And then we were just thinking about it and thought, okay, well, ultimately, maybe all of these things get achieved. There's one factor that sits on top of all of these, which is the straits open. Like, if the straits are open, these things can happen, because it will mean that there is sufficient peace in the region. And if the straits do not open, then even if one party has said that things are fine, I don't know if that creates the conditions for peace sufficient for people's lives to go back and everything to be fine. So that's where my brain was going. I think, to be honest, guys, unfortunately, there's no concrete conclusions here. These are just like lines of questions and lines of ideas that we're going down as we try to make sense of the situation. But yeah, my general feeling at the moment is that conflict continues, basically. Rahim, we'll give you the final view on this before we get into the main headlines, because we've got some very bullish crypto headlines to talk about as well. Final take here from you, and then we'll keep moving.
Yeah, I think like the Iran government came out saying that, like, for us to essentially put an end to this, it's not just about stopping the conflict now, but having some sort of like assurance that like this is not going to happen in like the future. In the earlier conversation, they were talking about reparations, where they were like, oh, US needs to pay us like money. Recently,
Yeah.
I've seen that like kind of disappear from the conversation. Obviously, that doesn't mean that they're not looking for that, but I feel like they've been like very clear with like their demands that it doesn't have to be about this conflict. We need to figure out a way that this will not happen in like the future. And there, I agree with you. That's where they would be like, okay, you know what, let's bring peace and like open like the Strait.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's where we are, guys. Complicated situation. We'll keep discussing it and try and stay on top of it as best we can and analyze it with you. Right. Let's get to the main headlines for today, starting with the Bitcoin move higher. And then we're going to talk about the hyper move higher as well. So lots of moves higher. Looking forward to that. Let's take us through the Bitcoin move and the other major assets that you're finding interesting.
Yeah, let's do it. You said at the top of the show, Bitcoin sits just above 74K, is up 6% on the week. What also has happened yesterday, just after we closed the show, is that Michael Saylor Strategy made another very significant buy of BTC. They did add 1.57 billion worth of Bitcoin last week, now holding a bit more than 760,000 Bitcoin. And they are up on the last buy, given that they bought, I think, for an average of 70-something K, and we are trading at 74K right now. What also has continued is the streak of inflows, which I had reported on yesterday in the Bitcoin spot ETFs. We did see another 200 mil flowing into the ETFs yesterday, puts us at 6 consecutive days of beautiful green inflows. The stock market had a good day as well after what was more of a volatile start, but ultimately Nasdaq ended up 1.2%. S&P 500 ended up 1%, and most of the Nasdaq gains are being driven by the upside momentum that NVIDIA had yesterday. We're gonna touch on that a bit later in the show, and gold did also move just a touch above 5K again, is sitting above this important mark. Yesterday we did report it went under, but now it's up 0.2%, so 20 base points on the day, and is trading at $5,007 at the moment.
Good stuff. Okay, so different things going on, different asset classes that we're kind of interested in at the moment. Let me try and share some of my context, and then Ledge, I'll throw to you. So we've been chatting about gold. I just can't see that the two challenges for me at the moment with gold is that the first is I'm getting very persuaded by this idea, which I hadn't heard before, which is you buy gold when you're worried about the future, you sell gold when you're worried about the present. And I can see a scenario now where gold is sold for a variety of reasons. Either, I mean, there's a humongous migration taking place at the moment. You've got a load of people on the move in Lebanon. I'm not saying like this is all the world's gold, but I'm saying that there's a humongous migration taking place there as they are being ushered out of their maybe I think it's 10% of Lebanon has been asked to move by Israel as they kind of move forward against Hezbollah. You have a humongous number of people in Iran moving towards Turkey as we speak, and trying to evacuate in some ways. And again, I don't know the exact numbers here, but when there's such significant conflicts like this, you have these movements. And so it's not only that, but just the general conflict around the world. And so that's on the individual level, but then on the sovereign level, I saw Poland considering, after building up all of these gold reserves, considering that might be the right time to bolster their defense. I think everyone's looking around saying we're not able to rely on our allies in the way that we used to, and we should probably take a bit more responsibility for our own defense. How are you going to finance that? And it might be that they look towards gold because you're worried about the present. So having said that, all of this stuff is going to be inflationary, I think. So ideally you want to, if you're just going to take a long view, I think gold is still fine. I think it might be a bit bumpy in the short and medium term though. But I can't see this being a bad hold for a proportion. I'm trying to stop thinking about it too much because I don't really want to be trading gold. But I just wanted to lay out my thinking there. I did let go of a little bit. I'm LPing a little bit. I should probably just park that away and not think about it. Just know that it's my holdings. On the stock side, I'm still short NVIDIA, but gosh, the stock market just refuses to budge. I'm curious for your thoughts on that at the moment, Ledge. And then crypto is looking incredibly strong. So I want to put this back to you guys in 3 directions. Stocks being incredibly high. Ledge, I don't know if you want to go into NVIDIA and just deal with that now, because that was going to be your headline anyway. Stocks refusing to budge down despite all of this conflict. Gold being pretty set on that 5K region, but with a bit of volatility, down 10% from its highs. And then what's the final one? Crypto showing incredible strength. We'll let you guys take it whatever way you want. Ledge first, then I'll come to you, Rahim.
Yeah, let's maybe tie that in with the NVIDIA headline, because I'm curious to hear your thoughts as to why you are short NVIDIA. Is that like the company in particular is an expression of thinking that stocks in tech is overheated, or the AI bubble is a bit overheated? But to set this up, let's actually dive into the headline. As just said before, that Nasdaq was up a bit more than 1% yesterday. And NVIDIA in particular is up 1.6%, was up a bit more, closed a bit lower than it had pumped. And that had to do with this announcement that NVIDIA made, where they said that they are forecasting that their artificial intelligence chips may reach at least $1 trillion through 2027, doubling up from 500 bill, making it a very, very attractive revenue opportunity, obviously, for them. And there's this clip which I want to play. Let's see if that works.
Blackwell and Rubin.
Computing demand will be much higher than that.
NVIDIA has raised its outlook for AI chip sales, saying the revenue opportunity could hit at least $1 trillion through 2027. That is a big jump from the $500 billion it foresaw earlier for its Blackwell and Rubin chips through 2026.
I want to thank Samsung, who manufactures the Grok LP30 chip for us.
At the GT.
Exactly, and he has been highlighting that there is this Grok chip, which is not to be confused with Grok by X. It is Grok with a Q at the end by Samsung. That it is powering that in one of the many collaborations that NVIDIA has, and it is a $17 billion license that is at the bottom of that. And I think the other thing that ties into that I also want to touch on really quickly, that is to do with NVIDIA, that at the same time they're making this very massive bet on OpenClaw and on the agentic environment. They released NemoClaw, which is basically their way of making OpenClaw a safer and easier deployment. So it is integrating with OpenClaw. It is using NVIDIA's agent toolkit, installing NVIDIA's OpenShell. All of that means is you can use OpenClaw and you get the security and safety guardrails that NVIDIA has built for their own agentic toolkit. You can use it with NVIDIA's own LLM as well, deploy that anywhere you want. Can deploy it obviously on NVIDIA GPUs as well. And during this event, or during this announcement, he also made this remark that every company needs to have an agentic strategy. And it was quite interesting because this NemoClaw thing was rumored to happen before. And many people were thinking, because of these remarks, that this is going to be something to do with OpenClaw like agents to be deployed for enterprises. But they took the complete retail approach with that by saying, no, we just want to give a easier and simpler and safer way to use OpenClaw agents at the same time. So they're not only betting on the hardware they're building, but now getting more involved on that agentic software side as well to help increase and pump that demand too.
Interesting. Okay. I did see one comment about NVIDIA that it wasn't necessarily a humongous increase in demand, that you'd need to double click on this. So please check me on this. But I think they had forecasted $500 billion of demand for 2020, like for the next year. And then when he says $1 billion now, it's not a straight double because it's just adding an extra year. So it's kind of 500 billion over 2 years. So I think that's why maybe you saw the price action ledge, if you've got that. Immediately on the announcement, I think when it heard the 1 trillion number, the price spiked up. And then immediately after that, it spiked back down more or less to where it was. Maybe it was still up 1% or so, but it was up a bit more initially because it heard the trillion number. Then it realized it wasn't really a doubling of expectations is my reading of the situation. Why am I short NVIDIA? It's less to do with NVIDIA and more to do with, well, it's kind of to do with NVIDIA. I think anyone who's allocated to NVIDIA is already allocated. I don't think there's a marginal buyer. And I think it's a general expression of the market, and I think the market should go down. But I'm kind of open about this. It's a bit of a hedge against the rest of my portfolio. I'm kind of open with the idea, like, I don't know if it's going to go down. I really don't. I feel like it's my instinct, but I know so many people are betting on market needing to go down from here because it's overweight, because of the private credit crisis, because of the conflict, because of like all of these factors. At this point, I honestly do not know. I just feel like that's my gut instinct. and I just want some positioning in that direction, and that's it.
NASDAQ. I mean, NVIDIA has a lot of, I don't know, man. Google Gemini just shut down their pro image generation model because it used too much CPU and they couldn't keep up, and people wanted it so bad they shut it down. Nano Banana Pro, you can't use anymore. Like they actually took their best product off the market because it required too much of NVIDIA's product. I don't know. It just feels like there's a lot of idiosyncratic risk here for the fact that the hunger people have for more CPU is basically never ending. And why not just short NASDAQ?
Yeah. I felt like, I felt like it.
Get rid of their very best product.
Yeah, I thought that this was a good expression of just thinking everything was going to go down, because I think do you not think, Sam, if NASDAQ goes down, NVIDIA goes, like, NVIDIA has to go down with it in some way?
I mean, look, if we get a crash, NVIDIA is going to go down a lot. But I also think there's a world where markets do poorly and NVIDIA hangs in there because it's an expression. I mean, there's a world where markets go down because everybody's spending all their money on NVIDIA and costs are going up. NVIDIA does well. I mean, I don't know. I don't know anything about valuation. I've owned the stock for a long time, but I don't really care about it. Like, I
actually agree with everything that you just said. And then
you're talking about, that's my issue. The view you're talking about is broad market risk, whereas when you short NVIDIA, you're also taking other views. It's not simply one-to-one correlation to broad markets. It's like, yeah, it's higher beta, but it's also got alpha in there, like very specific NVIDIA specific things that drive the stock price, which is not what it sounds like you have a strong view of.
Sure. And then I guess on the buy side, though, my question would be like, are there more people who want to pile into NVIDIA who have not already? So I think when things are high, there are all kinds of reasons why the assets are good, right? And that's why it's got so high. And then my question is just, well, are those people already all allocated? It's like when Bitcoin was, it's clearly not the same comparison, but purely from a holding perspective, when Bitcoin's super high, yeah, there's all kinds of reasons why it's so high and why it could go higher. But then at some point, people decide, okay, this is a price I'm willing to take stuff off the table now, and then things can go down. So again, less on the business side, it's more kind of a gone.
I mean, one is there's the good old meme in NFTs, like, good news, all the sellers are gone. What you're saying is good news, all the buyers are gone.
Yeah,
so the stocks go up when the companies make more money. So at the end of the quarter, people, NVIDIA reports that they're making more money than people thought, which is what happens at quarters. Go the other way, but good go up when they make more money, not when it's different from crypto, where it's just about like this issue of like, are the buyers or sellers there? And here, they end up raising price and making more money, the stock will go higher.
Yeah, I think we've ranged quite a while with NVIDIA though as well. So, okay.
Much more closely than I have, I will say that.
Yeah, good conversation, hearing a little bit of both sides. As we go to Rahim now, maybe just stick the 6-month chart NVIDIA just so we can have on screen to see how long NVIDIA's kind of been in a holding-ish pattern. Rahim, coming to you here, whether you've got a view on NVIDIA or not, or whether you want to take it straight into the HyperLiquid conversation, what do you want to do?
Just like a quick thing, like just to touch on the point where you're like, I'm not sure who the marginal buyer is that everyone who wanted exposure already has. I would take like 2 arguments against that. Is A, I feel like there's a massive influx of like the younger crowd that has gotten into like stock investing because of like AI, which wasn't the case before. And even if I take like the way I consume content on Instagram or like TikTok, like a lot of these people, like I don't think I've ever seen, and sure, one can argue that my algorithms are like shifted, but I would say a lot of like my friends, a lot of people who are like not into like investing in stocks, everyone's been talking about like getting an edge for like AI. So I feel like that's a big argument. The second thing I would still say, there are still so many companies trading at like way higher valuation than they should be. Like if we believe, like I used to come from a creative industry, like the fact that to me, the fact that the Adobe stock is only down 33% is not enough. I think it should be down like 90%, because I know enough people in the industry that have completely stopped using like their products, have completely like being like, there are better ecosystems to use, whether it's for video editing, whether it's for like rendering. So I feel like, to me, the fact that there are still so much capital in different like SaaS products, in different like tech products, like Fiverr and this and that, I feel like shows that like there's a lot of capital that needs to be moved out of like these companies, that unless they pivot massively into like a AI focused company, like it's just like hard for them to like survive.
Well, one point on that before I let you take us into Hyperliquid is maybe that is the scenario that Sam was describing in some ways. Like, other things go down, and these things have got hit, right? Those software companies have got hit hard. They are down like 30-something% already in some cases, whilst everything else has ranged. So there has been this kind of reallocation of resources within the S&P. So okay, interesting. Right, look, we don't have much longer today, so definitely want to give some time to Hyperliquid, because it does deserve it. Rahim, tell us what we need to know on Hyperliquid and what your view on it is.
Yeah, I think like, just to look at it, it's such a poetic thing to think about, that when Wall Street goes to sleep, that's when you as like retail have like an edge, because like Hyperliquid has been absolutely like killing it when it comes to like their Hit3 product, and you being able to trade oil on their platform. Like earlier it was trading at like, they had like volumes of $24 million like on like a daily basis. Now they've been raising 1.2 billion dollars like every single day, and like they have $400 million of like open interest. The fact that there is so much of the world news that moves on the weekends, and keep in mind, it's only like the West that like runs on like Saturday, Sunday. A lot of like the East essentially has like Friday, Saturday off. So a lot of like these like GCC countries, a lot of those countries, they actually like open up markets, open up like their industries on like Sundays. And I feel like for us as an industry to be able to like trade perpetual contracts on Hyperliquid has been like super interesting, which is why obviously like the entire crypto market has been doing like really well, but like Hyperliquids as like a product is being talked about on like Wall Street, on like Financial Times. You have like normies talking about that, okay, if the war and like the conflict and Trump making like a social media post on like a Saturday night is not going to stop on like the weekends, and the fact that you cannot trade like that news on until like the financial markets open, why wouldn't you use a product like Hyperliquid, and anyone who's building ecosystems that you can trade oil like 24/7? Super interesting to see. I think it like makes like a massive argument for decentralized KYC less ecosystems where people have like an edge, especially when you talk about like when it comes to TradFi, they know way before what's happening in like the world than the rest of the retail knows. I think Hyperliquid has been like doing it amazing, and it's interesting to keep an eye on different traditional financial markets talk about it more and more, which just like validates our industry.
Interesting. Okay, excellent summary. A few interesting points to take away there. I've got a question for Ledge to close us out. About the weekend trading, it seems to be the case, at least as an outsider, that when America decides to do specific things, they do them on the weekend. I think that is structurally to avoid market volatility during those events. Now, I guess that doesn't necessarily apply, as markets can react, or at least in the main stocks and main commodities, because you have access to Hyperliquid to trade those moments on the weekend. So I think that is true, and that is what is happening. And then I also think that you mentioned there's a demand for like a KYC less environment for places to trade. The thing that I think about that is other people in my legal hat on, though without this being legal advice, obviously, is that other companies that have to go through the legal hurdles are not going to let a non-KYC, non-compliant entity take all of their volume, all of their trading volume, make all the money when they've had to go through all these things. This is the big question mark over Hype. And I say this as someone who loves Hyperliquid, has bought a ton over the time and is constantly bullish on it. The big question mark is the regulatory thing, because I do not believe that other companies will just let them do this. However, the parenthesis on that part of it is, to me, this is not a US administration that is concerned with compliance. I don't think this administration, at least in the next couple of years, are going to make it, or this, I don't know which board this comes, whether it's the SEC or the CFTC. I think they're loaded with people now who are bullish on crypto, bullish on speculation, let people trade. And so I don't think this is going to be one of the things that will get, that HyperLiquid could get pulled up on in the near term. In fact, the more speculation there is, the more bullish that is for the dispersion and widespread use of the dollar, because you always, when you trade on these markets, go back to the dollar when you finish your trade. You're either in USDC or USDH on HyperLiquid now, I think. And so from a US perspective, more holistically, you know, and again, look, I think ultimately this is a relatively small market on a global scale. It's only just started getting this, you know, humongous mainstream attention. But the more speculation there is there, the more people around the world who are using the dollar. Do you really want to clamp down on that immediately? You know, in a world where some people are moving away from the dollar, it seems like people are going to keep going back to USDC when they take their profits, because all of these pairs are designed with USDC or USDH. So that's my view there. I know we're running a little bit over today. Ledge, coming to you for your perspective here. What's your view on hype at $40 now? It's obviously much higher than before.
I completely underestimated that. We had this discussion last week where you said that hype is going to be a good bet on this volatility. And I said, nah, I don't think so. I don't think that it's going to react that strongly in the short term. And ultimately it did. It almost doubled up. So I'm amazed by the price action. I'm honestly surprised that it went that high. It was said it clearly in the show that I don't think this is going to happen. And I was wrong with that.
Yeah, I still think it's a wonderful expression of volatility in the world. You don't want to take, if you don't want to take bets on how the world keeps swinging on its pendulum over the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months, you can just sit in hype, because that's where the people who are betting on the pendulum swinging will be betting. I think that is the way people are viewing it at the moment. That's the way I articulated that perspective maybe a few weeks ago or whenever it was. Does seem to be playing out at the moment. And the only question is to what extent you still want to allocate at 40. I think I want to keep one eye on HIP4. Actually, I'll leave the show on that. Keep one eye on HIP4. HIP3 is obviously the thing that's getting huge traction now, being able to trade these interesting assets via perpetuals on hype. Start to look towards HIP4 as the next really big leg up. Prediction markets, or I can't remember the name of it. They're calling it outcome markets, I think, on HyperLiquid. If that also is a hit, then who knows? I don't know if that's getting priced in at the moment. So I think it's worth having a look at that. Let's leave it there, guys. Great show. Really interesting conversation, attacking things from different angles, different perspectives getting shared. Really enjoyed that. Hope you guys enjoyed it too in the audience. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow, 7 a.m. Eastern time, live for an hour, live on X Video, YouTube, and you can catch us on Apple, Spotify, podcast as well. Thank you to my co-hosts, Legendary and Rahim. Thanks for stats, chiming in with his views as well. Always appreciate those. Have a wonderful day. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.